Imagine a quiet, mountain community, a place where life just moves slower, really far from the world's chaos. And then in one horrific night, that peace is just utterly shattered by this brutal, unsolved crime. How does an entire family's world get ripped apart like that? And how does a horrific quadruple homicide remain this haunting mystery for, well, for decades?
It's more than just a question, isn't it? It's like a wound that never really heals,
Yeah.
especially, for anyone connected to the case. The sheer brutality, coupled with the initial lack of clear answers, it just creates this unbearable tension. It hangs over every single detail.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're taking a really comprehensive look into one of America's most infamous cold cases, the Keddie murders. This isn't just going to be a simple retelling. Our mission here is to truly unpack the source material, the information we have. We want to pull out the most crucial details, the puzzling contradictions, and yeah, some surprising recent developments in this case that just won't go away. We're trying to get beyond the headlines, to really understand the facts as they unfolded and, well, how they continue to unfold, starting with that chilling night, April 11th, 1981, in Keddie, California.
Exactly. And our goal for you listening today is to walk away with a clear, comprehensive understanding of the events, the key players, the complexities of the investigation, and maybe most importantly, why this case still captivates and, let's be honest, haunts so many people. We're going to try and pull back the layers, piece by piece, help you grasp the full scope of this tragedy and its decades-long aftermath.
Okay, so let's unpack this. It all starts with the Sharp family. Glenna Susan Sue Sharp. She was born March 29th, 1945. She decided she needed a fresh start. So after separating from her husband, James, she moved her 5 children all the way from Connecticut. This was back in July 1979. They came out to Northern California, settling near her brother, Don. First, they had a small trailer in Quincy. But by the fall, they'd moved into house #28 in Keddie. It's this rural Sierra Nevada railroad town. And this house, number 28, it was quite a bit bigger and had just become available.
Right, it was a full house, definitely signaled a new beginning, in this quiet sort of mountainous setting.
Yep.
So house #28 was home to Sue, her 15-year-old son John, her 14-year-old daughter Sheila, 12-year-old Tina, and then the 2 younger boys, Rick, who was 10, and little Greg, just 5 years old. Seems like a pretty typical family finding their feet in a picturesque, if pretty remote spot.
And this brings us right to that pivotal day. April 11th, 1981, the day before everything happened. That morning, Sue, Sheila, and Greg drove to pick up John and his 17-year-old friend, Dana Hall Wingate. Apparently, the boys were hitchhiking from Quincy back to Keddie.
Yeah, and what's interesting here is the movement of the boys. Just a couple hours later, around 3:30 in the afternoon, John and Dana were seen hitchhiking back to Quincy. They were reportedly going to visit friends downtown, and people did see them there. So this back and forth, it really sets up a crucial part of the timeline, establishes who is where in those hours leading up to the crime, and maybe, who might have seen them.
Okay, so later that evening, Sheila leaves house #28 sometime after 8 p.m. She's going to spend the night with the Seabolt family. They live right next door in house #27. Now, Tina, the 12-year-old, she'd actually been watching TV over at the Seabolt's place. She heads back to house #28 after asking what time it was, around 9:30 p.m. So when the house finally quieted down for the night, inside were Sue, John, Tina, Rick, Greg, and also Justin Smart. He was a friend of the younger boys staying over.
And that takes us to the horrifying discovery. Around 10 a.m., maybe a little later, on the morning of April 12th, Sheila comes back home to house #28. What she found, it must have been truly unimaginable. Just a scene of absolute horror. The bodies of Sue, John, and Dana were there in the living room, dead.
And the scene presented this immediate chilling contrast, didn't it? Because while Sue, John, and Dana were tragically found deceased, Sue's 2 younger sons, Rick and Greg, and their friend Justin Smart, they were discovered physically unharmed in an adjacent bedroom. The most terrifying detail, the one that just instantly escalated the mystery, was that 12-year-old Tina. She was completely missing from the scene, gone.
Yeah, the immediate aftermath sounds like pure chaos, as you'd expect. Sheila rushes back to the Seabolt's house next door. Jamie Seabolt, the neighbor, he acts quickly. He gets Rick, Greg, and Justin out through the bedroom window. But, and this is important later, he also admitted to briefly going into the home through the back door, checking for survivors. Understandable, right, in that situation. But unfortunately, that action, it could have potentially compromised critical evidence at the crime scene. It just highlights the challenges of those first moments.
Absolutely. And the details of the crime itself, they paint a truly brutal picture. All 3 victims found in the living room, Dana Wingate, Sue Sharp, and John Sharp, they'd been bound with medical tape and electrical cords. And the weapons. 2 bloody knives and 1 hammer were found right there at the scene. Blood spatter evidence made it clear the murders all happened right there, in the living room. A confined, horrific attack.
And let's look at the specific injuries, because they do reveal something about the nature of the attack. Sue was found nude from the waist down, lying on her side near the sofa. She was gagged with a blue bandana and her own underwear, secured with tape. She had been stabbed in the chest and her throat was stabbed horizontally. The wound went through her larynx, even nicked her spine. And on the side of her head, investigators found an imprint. It matched the butt of a Daisy 880 Powerline BB pellet rifle. You know, a common air rifle, but used here as some kind of improvised blunt weapon. It's notable. The level of violence is just staggering. Yeah. John Sharp, his throat was slashed. He also suffered blunt force trauma to his head, caused by 1 or maybe more hammers. Dana Wingate, the friend, also had multiple head injuries, blunt force trauma, again from hammers. But uniquely, he was manually strangled to death. The autopsies later confirmed it. Sue and John died from knife wounds and blunt force trauma. Dana died by asphyxiation. Suffocation.
Which raises this really profound question, doesn't it? One that's plagued investigators for decades, given the sheer violence you just described. How could Sheila and the Seabolt family, sleeping right next door, have heard no commotion during the night? It says a puzzling silence. But then you have this other detail. A couple living in a nearby house, #16, was woken up at 1:15 a.m. by what they described as muffled screaming. This significant discrepancy, it immediately throws a layer of confusion onto the timeline.
That discrepancy alone is jarring. But the complexity just deepens when we bring in Justin Smart, one of the unharmed kids. He apparently gave conflicting stories about the evening, at least initially. Later, under hypnosis, which is controversial in itself, he claimed he saw Sue with 2 men. And this led to what became a really controversial part of the early investigation, the composite sketches of these 2 supposed individuals.
Yeah, and what's truly astonishing here is how they went about getting those sketches. Based on Justin's descriptions, these composites were produced by a guy named Harlan Embry. Now, he wasn't a trained forensic artist. He was described as an amateur, someone with basically no artistic ability or specific training in forensic sketching. That's a specialized skill, right? Creating a likeness from memory. And it was never really explained why law enforcement used him instead of, highly skilled artists from the Justice Department or the FBI. Those resources were available anyway. The suspects were described, late 20s, early 30s. One taller, 5'11" to 6'2", dark blonde hair. The other shorter, 5'6" to 5'10", black, greased hair. Both supposedly wearing gold-framed sunglasses, the choice of artist there. Well, it casts a long shadow over how reliable those initial leads really were.
Definitely. And these sketches, created under such, let's say, questionable circumstances, became this lasting image of the mystery, but potentially a misleading one. Meanwhile, you had rumors spreading fast. Was it ritualistic? Was it about drug trafficking? But the Plumas County Sheriff at the time, Doug Thomas, he dismissed those pretty quickly, stated in the week right after the murders that they found no drug paraphernalia, no illegal drugs in the home, directly contradicting those theories.
Early leads also included that sighting of a green van, parked at the Sharps' house around 9 p.m. Several people recalled seeing it, including members of the Seabolt family next door. And crucially, Justin's stepfather and neighbor, Martin Smart. He claimed that a claw hammer had inexplicably gone missing from his own home. These early details became these threads in a really tangled web, didn't they? With their full significance?
Yeah.
Well, that wouldn't be understood for decades.
And the most agonizing aspect of this case, for so long, was Tina Sharp's disappearance. Her absence just cast this profound shadow over everything. Initially, the FBI did investigate it as a possible abduction. But then there was a report, April 29, 1981, saying the FBI had backed off the search. The reasoning given was that the California State Department of Justice was doing an adequate job and made the FBI's presence unnecessary. That decision, looking back, it seems particularly problematic, especially given what happened later.
Absolutely. And for 3 long years, Tina just remained a missing person, this painful void in the family's tragedy. Then on April 11, 1984, and chillingly, that was the 3rd anniversary of the murders, a bottle collector made a grim discovery. The cranium portion of a human skull and part of a mandible, a jawbone. They were found out at Camp 18 near Feather Falls. That's in Butte County, roughly 62 miles from Keddie.
62 miles. That's a significant distance. A whole different county. The remains were confirmed by a forensic pathologist to be Tina's in June 1984. But here's another truly baffling detail, one that I think speaks volumes about the initial investigation. Shortly after the discovery of the remains, the Butte County Sheriff's Office got an anonymous phone call. The caller specifically identified the remains as belonging to Tina. Yet this crucial call, it was not documented in the official case file. Unbelievable. A tape recording of the call was only found, tossed at the bottom of an evidence box sometime after 2013 by a deputy who was assigned to look into the cold case. This whole incident, a vital call identifying Tina's remains, just goes undocumented, lost for decades. It's just a stark illustration, isn't it? Of the systemic issues that maybe plagued early investigations in more rural areas, resources, standardized protocols, or maybe lacking compared to bigger departments. It's not just lost paperwork. It's a lost opportunity that just compounded the mystery.
That absolutely underscores the challenges and, frankly, the critical flaws that would later really hang over the entire case. And the physical location itself, House #28, it was eventually demolished in 2004, erasing that tangible link to the crime and any potential new evidence that, maybe could still been found on the property.
So for decades, the case just seemed to languish, almost forgotten by many. But then, starting around 2016, some truly stunning new developments started to peel back those layers of silence. The Sacramento Bee reported on this letter, sent by Martin Smart, Justin's stepfather, the neighbor, the guy with the missing hammer theory, to his wife Marilyn. This was after he'd left Keddie for Reno. And the letter concluded with this chilling line: "I've paid the price of your love, and now I've bought it with 4 people's lives." Special investigator Mike Gamberg later stated this letter was somehow overlooked in the initial investigation, never even admitted as evidence, just overlooked.
Yeah, the discovery of Martin Smart's letter with that chilling admission, it doesn't just add new evidence, it completely reshapes the narrative, doesn't it? It forces everyone to reevaluate assumptions held for decades. And it really highlights how deeply personal relationships can be tangled up with the darkest secrets, even in a seemingly quiet community. Gamberg's criticism of the original investigation has been quite blunt. He literally said, you could take someone just coming out of the academy and they'd have done a better job. And beyond the letter, Martin Smart also allegedly admitted something to a counselor. He apparently said he had committed the murders of Sue and Tina, but he claimed, I didn't have anything to do with the boys. He supposedly told the counselor that Tina was killed to stop her identifying him because she had witnessed the whole thing.
Wow. And it doesn't even stop there. Another suspect emerged later, a man named John Boubaid. He was apparently staying in the same neighboring cabin as Smart around the time of the murders, and supposedly had ties to organized crime back in Chicago. Boubaid died in 1988, but his connection just added another layer of intrigue, another possibility for who might have been involved.
And then a really significant piece of physical evidence resurfaced, one that linked directly back to those early kind of murky details. On March 24th, 2016, a hammer matching the description of the one Martin Smart had claimed went missing from his place. It was discovered, found in a local pond. The Plumas County Sheriff at that time, Greg Hagwood, who was actually 16 when the murders happened and knew the Sharp family, he stated, the location suggested it would have been intentionally put there. It would not have been accidentally misplaced. At that point, investigator Gamberg said they were examining about 6 potential suspects. It really brought a renewed focus to the case.
But maybe the biggest modern breakthrough, the one that truly brought this decades-old mystery into the age of modern forensic science, that came in April 2018. Special investigator Gamberg announced this critical development: DNA. Recovered from a piece of tape at the original crime scene, it matched that of a known living suspect. That is the kind of leap forward these cold cases desperately need.
It absolutely is. It just underscores how critical those tiny, seemingly insignificant details left at a crime scene can be even decades later. Modern forensics, combined with these dedicated new investigative efforts, they're finally chipping away at what seemed like this impenetrable mystery. The journey of the Keddie murders, from that chaotic, confusing discovery through a, flawed initial investigation and then decades of just frustrating silence, has finally seen some new light.
Indeed. And as we consider this ongoing pursuit of answers, the Keddie murders really remain this haunting symbol. A profound tragedy, yes, but also layers and layers of perplexing mystery. The efforts to solve it now really highlight that relentless pursuit of truth, even when the path is just obscured by time, by missteps, by vanished evidence. The ultimate resolution, though, it still hangs in the balance.
Which brings us to a final thought for you, the listener, to maybe mull over. What does it truly mean to find justice, especially when decades pass, key witnesses are gone, maybe perpetrators too, and even crucial evidence sometimes just disappears or gets overlooked? And what might this particular case tell us about the hidden truths, the secrets that can still lie just beneath the surface of seemingly quiet, ordinary communities?